second. All in favor? Aye. So moved. Correspondence. In the packet, we've got the minutes, which we just discussed. And then we have a number of documents on the left side. The code advisory, youth fire center, training and education, and code advisory. Anything else that anyone would like to add to the correspondence? Questions? Okay, great. We'll move on to the next part. There is in my opinion, a major public safety issue that has been raised in Atlantic City that I'm concerned about. The proposal by the state to take over Atlantic City has raised the prospect of cutting a significant number of firefighters from the Atlantic City Department. It's sudden, it's potentially going to take effect on February 1, and could have serious consequences for the safety of casino patrons as well as ordinary folk who live in Atlantic City. I invited the union here to tell us what their concerns are as part of the public comment section, the first public comment, and I would like to start, George, do you want to go?
Sure.
Name and organization.
Chairman, good morning. My name is George Bork. I'm the Vice President of the Professional Firefighters Association of New Jersey. We represent Atlantic City and many of the unions in New Jersey. As the chairman has said, in the past couple of weeks, we've been having discussions, Atlantic City has been having discussions with the DCA and the state of New Jersey. The state of New Jersey is proposing draconian cuts to Atlantic City. Let me go into it a little bit. You know, you have a department that has 240 members. They're asking Atlantic City to cut 106 members as of February 1st. As of February 1st. And anyone that knows that's been in the fire service, high rises and the type of construction you have down there, it's hard. They want to cut their groups from 4 groups to 3 groups. Okay? They want them to work 56 hours. Okay? They want them to take a pay cut of 20%. This is not what public safety is about. But the trickle-down effect is whatever happens in Atlantic City will also hurt the surrounding towns. Yes. Atlantic City supplies mutual aid to 2 towns. If Atlantic City can't protect their own, how are they going to protect the other surrounding towns? So today, we stand here to let you know what's going on. And let me just be frank, this is a one-sided discussion. This is the mentality of the state of New Jersey saying, take it or leave it. There's no discussion. But if it can happen there, it can happen in other parts of the state. So with that, Chairman, I'd like to invite the President of Atlantic City Firefighters, Billy DiLorenzo, to please come up and say a couple words.
Hi, my name is Bill DiLorenzo, Atlantic City firefighter for 17 years. Obviously, we have concerns when you're looking to cut 54% of our department. Basically, you'll be cutting the department in half since 2010. We have 12 of the 50 tallest buildings in New Jersey are in Atlantic City. We had a nor'easter storm the other day. It was hard to get onto the island. It's hard to get off of the island when we have these storms. Obviously, that's a concern with mutual aid and even getting the manpower to work. It's a problem. So it's definitely going to be taxing on what is left over if they cut our department in half. Right now, we can't meet the NFPA 1710 standard. If they take another 100 men away from the force, we'll be 35% under the response that they want to respond to a high-rise fire.
So can I just ask, can you explain what that standard is?
The standard is right now for a high-risk occupancy, like a high-rise casino, they want to respond 43 firefighters in the first 10 minutes. Right now, we won't even have 43 people working at one time. Okay, we'll be down to about 30 people working at one time. We'll be down to about 7 companies. And there's nobody who's surrounding area that has the resources to help. The town that is adjacent to Atlantic City has about 6 to 8 firemen working at a time. They also run the ambulance, so if the ambulance is out on a call, that leaves one apparatus to be able to help out. And they're not going to be responding right away. They wait until they get, the people to come in to protect their own cities. So it's definitely going to be a delay before we get any help. And obviously, being on a barrier island, there's access problems to even get any help. But there is no large departments around like we see up north to be able to get that help. So there's nobody coming to help. It's gonna create.
What's the rationale? What's the state's rationale for doing this?
I guess they want to save money, and we appreciate that. But if you look around New Jersey and you look at the budgets of other fire departments, they typically run from 12 to 15% of their budget. Our fire department currently is about 7% of our budget. So we've made the cuts. We've done the things that we need to do. But this, we feel, is going to definitely put the resources that we need down to a level that is unsafe. It's unsafe for us, it's unsafe for the people who live there, it's unsafe for the visitors.
Just one last question, and I'll open up to the commissioners. Isn't it true that some of these positions are actually funded by a federal grant?
Correct. Presently, 84 of the positions are funded by a federal grant, so they won't save any money until they get rid of the first 84 guys. So really, they'll only be able to save money on about 17 of the positions. But if they do go down to this number, this is going to be about 10 firefighters less than we had in the 1900s. Yes, when they established the department, they had about 131 guys. They want to go to 125 right now. That'll be, like I said, about a 54% decrease in our manpower. Our budget is lower than it was 20 years ago. So we feel we've done a good job in addressing the cost issue. Obviously, they're not going to save Atlantic City's budget doing this. Right.
Commissioners?
Are you closing any houses?
We feel they'll have to close 2 companies. They say they'll close 1 company, but we feel it's going to be at least 2 or 3. We just had an ISO report done in 2012. We got a 70% score. They required that we had 3 ladder trucks. We're down to 2 right now. Our manpower is down 17% since that time, just in 2012. So we already know that, that score is going to go down again. We've also cut an engine since that time period. So, to cut another engine and possibly 2 more, it's definitely going to take an effect on the ISO. So any money they would save, they're going to pay more in hazard insurance. We already know that.
Commissioner Blue?
Mr. Chairman, it's no secret that I represent the Professional Firefighters Association of New Jersey on the Fire Commission. I've been here since Governor Christie Whitman was the governor, and every governor subsequent to that. And I can certainly sympathize with Atlantic City because they attempted something similar when I was the fire chief in Hoboken. 38 years experience there, and 8 years as the chief, 16 years as a deputy fire chief, and fire instructor for almost 20 years, training not only firefighters in New Jersey, but all around the country. So this bothers me greatly. This is nothing more than bureaucrats being given their marching orders with regard to making cuts with no consideration for the dramatic impact that it will have not only on the firefighters that you see here in the field, but on the community that they're sworn to protect. There's nothing, I understand the fiduciary responsibility of these folks that come in and took over from the state, but they have to measure that against the statistical data that goes along with what the capabilities of these firefighters are when they make these dramatic cuts. Where is their forensic audit that was done to determine that they can cut this number of firefighters, ask them to work 14 more hours a week, go down from 4 shifts to 3 shifts, so they're actually coming back to work quicker than they were in their current situation that they have of a 4-platoon system. And they want them to take a 20% cut in pay. Depending upon the season, the President is absolutely correct. Can you imagine when you do call for mutual aid, how they're gonna get in here in the summertime, when there's big events that are going on in Atlantic City? There's a video called Countdown to Disaster. It's only about 2 or 3 minutes long. It shows a regular living room with a cigarette that's dropped in a cushion, and there's a clock on the wall. And in less than 4 minutes, that entire room flashes over, the glass in that room breaks, and the fire blows out of that room. There's a term called normalization of deviance. There's a woman by the name of Diane Vaughan that wrote a book on the Challenger shuttle disaster. And she said in her book that NASA knew 2 years before that Challenger shuttle disaster occurred that it was going to happen, and they did nothing about it. And she coined that phrase, normalization of deviance. That's what's happening throughout the state here with the governor and these bureaucrats that he sends in when they have these cuts that have to be made. I'll lay it out for you in very simple terms. Everybody has a 6 or 8 foot A-frame ladder in your home. What it says on the top step of that ladder, do not stand there. How many of us have done that to get to that little spot that we want to paint on the wall or screw a light bulb in to replace it? And we'll do it over and over and over again because there's no bad consequences. And that's what the governor's crews are doing now. They're coming in and they're making cuts again without understanding the ramifications of their actions. And they'll keep gambling and gambling because they figure it won't happen on their watch. Well, I sincerely hope, that if they make these cuts, that somebody tries to prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law for the criminal activity, which I believe that this is.
Wow.
There's been no study done. At least in Hoboken, they hired an outside firm to come in. They interviewed me, they interviewed my chiefs of staff, they interviewed our captains, they interviewed lieutenants, they interviewed our fire prevention, they looked at all of our statistics, and they did a calculated and very succinct report and made recommendations. That hasn't been done here. I know that they have a couple of individuals. One of them is a fairly good friend of mine that I've known for many, many years, from a former retired fire department. He's retired from a fire department. You know what? When you're disconnected from a fire department for 10 or 15 years, there's some changes. And they're relying upon this individual, probably behind closed doors with a lot of pressure, to say that this is okay. This is absolutely insane and ridiculous. Something should be done. I would like to make a motion that this commission, and I hope that it's unanimous, sends a strongly worded letter to the Commissioner of the Department of Community Affairs advocating that they rethink their position and cease and desist immediately and sit back and get somebody to come in and do an audit so that they have some at least concrete statistical data to make decisions upon, and then take that audit and sit down with these folks and try and work something out.
Yes, Chairman, I'd like to second that motion. I'd also like to comment that manpower is extremely important to the firefighting efforts. And just recently, NIST conducted studies with the New York City Fire Department on Governor's Island. You know, it's not verified the fact that if you don't have sufficient manpower in those first alarms for these different hazards, you lose control of that fire. And we see it all around the state. All these multiple dwellings are going down. Not only do we have construction problems, but we have a huge manpower problem. And the majority of the state is either undermanned, they have 1 or 2 people on the apparatus, or there's volunteers where it takes time to get the members there. And by the time they get there, the fire is grown exponentially out of control. So to reduce the manpower in our largest city, one of our largest cities, which was already reduced years back, with some of our highest risk. If you don't have that manpower there, and I don't know what they're running with here, but it certainly isn't the old 6 members on the ladder and 6 guys in the engine like it used to be. We're already made those cuts years ago, if I recall. And data is there on how manpower affects the ability to fight a fire. Look at Great Intervention. Great Intervention years ago, 100 Castle. They used to have 6 guys in their career department. They cut it back to 2. Right? Didn't have large MROs, and what did they have? A fire where we lost 8 kids. They were attacking that fire with 2 guys. They didn't get mutual aid until 29 minutes later. Now here you got Barrier Island gets cut off with storms and everything else. You have high-rise buildings. This is ridiculous. And I agree with Commissioner Bloom. You don't jeopardize life safety without justifying your efforts and justifying your decision making. This is just a accountant saying, hey, you know, let's cut this. This is a big part of the budget. We don't need this many firemen. Yeah, you never need firemen till you need it. It's that simple. and I'd like to second the motion.
Okay.
No, I was just gonna second the motion.
We remember years ago your predecessor, Assemblyman Jack Kelly. And everybody in this room is familiar with the Seton Hall file. Remember, Jerry was at those hearings that Assemblyman Kelly requested. And I literally sat in the audience behind the table where witnesses came up to testify. And I remember the chief of security for the college testifying, and the dean of the college testifying. And they were asked why we don't have sprinklers in all of the dormitories. And the security chief said, well, it would be very cost prohibitive. And the dean of the college said that it would upset and interrupt the higher education learning process. Well, the steam was coming out of my ears. So when they got done, Assemblyman Kelly pointed to me and he said, we have a firefighter in the audience here, I'd like to ask him a question. He goes, yeah. So I came up and he said, state your name. He goes, let me ask you a question. Would you use the fire hoses at the ends of the corridors in these dormitories? I said, absolutely not, sir. They're porous. They may not be the right diameter hose for us. They may not be maintained properly. They may be missing. They may not match up or mesh with our existing fire. He said, okay, thank you very much. I said, Mr. Chairman, while I'm up here, can I make a comment? He said, he had the gavel in his hand, he said, you're gonna talk about sprinklers? Yes. I remember it distinctly. So I said to him, I'm gonna talk about sprinklers. I find it very alarming that we have a chief of security that has no idea about fire protection, and we have a dean of a college that sits there and says, we're going to interrupt the higher education learning process. That's why we can't sprinkle these dormitories. I hope, I said to the chairman, that we don't sit here 3 or 4 years from now trying to explain to new sets of parents why the cost of putting in these sprinklers was going to placate them that they lost their child that was entrusted to the higher education learning process, or that it would be interrupting the higher education learning process. The same thing is going to happen down here in Atlantic City. Somebody's going to lose their life in a fire. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when, if they make these kinds of reductions. And I hope that somebody's going to hold their feet to the fire with regard to the blatant way in which they're just trying to cut a path of destruction just to save a couple of bucks. And explain that to the people that lose a loved one in a fire because they couldn't get enough firefighters at that scene to put that fire out in an appropriate way. As I said, while I represent that organization, my words don't ring any less true. Simple as that.